We wanted to build a cereal that caters to people that really value performance. Didn't know how difficult it was going to be. It's been really, really tough. I genuinely believe this is going to be a very, very, very successful brand. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. The way I get motivated is not the fact that I'm trying to prove someone wrong. I'm genuinely trying to prove to people that believed in me right. That's kind of where my head's at. I'm not thinking about my risk or if it's not going to work. I have a plan A and plan A is going to work.
Health looks different these days for everybody. How you take care of yourself, how you show up for yourself, and how you build a business, a brand, a family, and still keep your habits on point. Today, you're going to meet somebody who has their life together, whether he likes to admit it or not. This individual has built an incredible brand. I walked into a convenience store one day and I pick up this product called Truly Cereal. I look at the ingredients after I see there's 18 grams of protein, and I noticed it was clean. There was avocado oil in it, and I was like, what is this? Next thing I know, I'm reaching out to the brand, and 5 minutes later, I'm somehow in touch with this incredible individual that is high functioning, a father, an athlete, an entrepreneur, a husband, and just a high quality dude. I'm so excited for you to meet Mr. Eoin Carroll, the founder of Truly Cereal. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing really, really well. That was an incredibly nice intro. So I really appreciate that, man.
Look, it's one of these things where from the first second we started talking, I was like, this guy's my vibe. I need to meet the founder of this company and just understand the story behind it. But what's interesting about your story in specific is that you actually started out as a pro bodybuilder. How did you go from pro bodybuilding to building out an awesome cereal brand?
So I moved to Canada in 2011. I worked in finance, but fitness, athletics was my background. When I got to Canada, bodybuilding was a thing that didn't exist in Ireland. And I think it came from the fact that I wanted to look great. I got really deep into it for 5 or 6 years. But when you're in bodybuilding, success is a function of how good your nutrition is. So that became an obsession of mine. And that just led into me building CPG food brands.
There's not a lot of content on you on the internet these days, for better or worse. I know you're on TikTok from the Truly Cereal aspect, but when it came to doing the research, not many interviews, very humble. I'm very grateful for getting some of your time today. How are you prioritizing what matters to you when you got your fitness, your family, your brand? How do you prioritize?
Yeah, there's not much on me online. I was never really a content creator per se. I was incredibly devoted to bodybuilding. I competed as a men's physique athlete, so I wasn't like a full-blown open bodybuilder. There's a division within bodybuilding called men's physique. So I was 180, 185 pounds on stage. The open guys would be 250 plus, right? But I was really, really into it. That was my thing. I think that when I get into a particular thing, I become hyper obsessed with it, for better or for worse, probably for worse now, because since how important media is, I just never got into the content creation side. And with Truly, everything has been based around building the best product possible. So I'm in this kind of season of my life where I'm kind of in monk mode, where I'm not doing interviews. I'm in the facility trying to build this product. I think it's reaching an inflection point now where it's going to be a situation where that kind of mass awareness is going to have to start building itself now. And I'm going to be the front man for the business. And maybe this podcast is the start of that. But yeah, it hasn't been a priority. It's been mainly just building the best product we possibly can.
Well, it's a great product, man. I think I told you the story, but after I picked it up, brought it home, didn't try it in the store, brought it home, and I took a bite. I was like, that was interesting. And then started mixing it in with some Greek yogurt, doubled down on the protein, and it was fantastic. But then my father-in-law tried it, my wife tried it, my brother-in-law tried it, and everyone had the same reaction. They take a bite, they look at the box, they take another bite, they look at the box, this is good. It was something that they can't relate to like you and I can, because they don't understand the value of, and general population, right? They don't understand the value of macronutrients and how important protein is. I think that it's starting to get that attention. But you mentioned something that you're in this season of life in monk mode. What is so important about over-indexing on the thing that you're focused on in order to achieve the outcome that you're trying to?
I think in the situation we're in right now the world is very, very different than it was 10, 15 years ago. I think if you had a monster ad campaign that you ran on TV 15, 20 years ago, it'd sell a shit product. The brand and the advertising was almost more important than the thing you're selling. But now everybody has their own platform. Everyone has a TikTok account, an Instagram account. And if you have a bad product, you're in a really difficult situation because people are going to find out quick. What I'm prioritizing right now is, I've got 2 young boys. My son's going to be 4 in a couple of weeks. I've got another son that's going to be 2 in July. And my wife is phenomenal, kind of bringing them up. I try and spend as much time with them as I can. And then the rest of my life is building out this business. Like, this is everything that I'm focused on right now. The part of the business that we feel is the most important right now is absolutely perfecting what this product is, how it's presented when it goes on shelf, and how people actually experience it when they get it to their houses. I'm happy that you tried it when you did. If you had tried it 18 months or 2 years before you got it, I don't know if you'd be sitting down with me right now. A lot has changed. And it's a really crazy category because maybe you remember, I don't know, when you started drinking protein shakes or eating protein bars. Like, I remember protein shakes that were like you were drinking chalk back in the day. You're like, oh, I'm going to drink this. I'm going to sacrifice the fact that this tastes terrible because I'm going to get my protein in. Protein shakes taste like milkshakes now. It is a joke. You mix a protein shake with water and it's like unbelievable. Protein bars and then bars like Mars or Snickers in the confectionery section, they're pretty comparable. Cereal hasn't changed in like 20, 30 years. What people grew up eating, they're still eating now. There's like Cocoa Puffs and these like, all those famous brands with the mascots and everything. But I think cereal is going to go in the same direction as protein bars went. All this proteinization of food is coming to cereal. And I think we're at the forefront of that. And what we're doing a little bit differently is that people are trying to tap into what cereal was, the nostalgia of cereal, the colorful packaging. What we wanted to do is we wanted to build a cereal that caters to people that really value performance. We went minimalist, bold packaging, brand blocking, black packaging across the shelf to make it stand out. It's probably why you picked it up. We just went the opposite way. We went the highest protein possible for the least amount of calories, and we didn't take any shortcuts on ingredients. So we weren't thinking of like, what's this going to cost when we build it? We're just going to build the best thing possible, and it's going to cost what it's going to cost.
That is like the kind of vision that you know when you hear it, that this is going somewhere. I think we talked about the black packaging a bit when we connected at first, and it's this going against the grain kind of mentality. How do you get the courage to lean into something like that when conventional wisdom says, well, do what everyone else is doing and you'll get those kinds of results?
I just don't think you're going to get any upside. Like, most CPG companies are going to fail. I had a CPG company that did fail. If you try and chase trend, if you try and be a Me Too product, you just get lost. We've bootstrapped this. We haven't raised a cent. So it's one of those situations where if you can't get people to buy your product because of all of the money you're spending in advertising, you have to do something different. You have to stand out. You have to gain market share using something that's like not conventional. Someone's going to see something, whoa, what's this? Why is this so different? We have to find some way to generate attention. And for us, getting attention is being on shelf with a packaging that is the complete antithesis of what the other brands are doing. Retailers didn't like it at the beginning. There's retailers that kind of said to me, the customer base is female and this is very masculine. This looks like a bodybuilding product. So yeah, we could have went that other direction, but we would have been a Me Too product. We definitely wouldn't have got to this point. And we're not like some massive company taking over the world yet. We're still in this, I'm in the middle of this. I'm not talking to you as, I had all this success and we're having this podcast. No, this is I'm in the middle of this right now. All the risk is still on my shoulders now. You know what I mean? So that's the spot we're in.
The question I was going to ask is, how do you cultivate that courage and then you brought up risk. How do you cultivate the courage to raise your risk tolerance in a way that allows you to keep going? What is it that's like allowing you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially to continue on this path, having bootstrapped it, going against the grain, and kind of all these factors that someone might argue are not in your favor?
The honest answer is that I benefited from an enormous amount of ignorance. I didn't know how difficult it was going to be. Someone asked me the other day, like, would you go back and like do it again? It's been really, really tough. The business nearly died multiple times. I had a real benefit of meeting my co-founder when I did, and he took a huge risk. He's a guy, he had exited a company before, and he started this directly after he exited with a guy that had a business before that. I had a beverage company. I was trying to chase the keto trend and it didn't work. And he bet on me to like brand this, do the product development. Like he was obviously very, very much involved, but he kind of bet on some guy that I didn't necessarily have anywhere close to the track record he did. For me, I didn't see it as like, oh, I'm so courageous. I have this risk tolerance. I'm like, I have this fucking opportunity to work with this guy and build in a category that I think has so much potential. There was no risk I wouldn't have taken. And I've taken all, like my entire everything is in this. Everything. It's like borderline reckless, but it was an enormous opportunity. Like I would have been crazy not to do it. So I don't think it was courage. I think it was just the fact that I saw this opportunity and I was like, why wouldn't I do this? This is crazy to not do this.
I'm getting the chills as you're talking because like I think about this podcast or any other venture that I've invested in where there's so much of yourself that you put into something that you have no choice but to believe in it. And it's that blind naivete that allows you to continue step after step after step. And you may not necessarily know 10 steps from now, even your next 5 moves, but there's something intrinsic about the experience of showing up day in, day out, regardless of whether you can see the results, because you got this vision in your mind that says, and this sense of purpose. At least this is what it is for me. I don't want to speak for you, but like I feel this immense amount of pressure in the things that I'm building, whether I'm speaking to hundreds or thousands of attorneys about how to become a bigger, better version of yourself, or on this podcast, we get thousands of people that are listening and have the opportunity to inspire raising the risk tolerance a bit. And you're like in the thick of it right now. And you're talking about how everything of you is invested. And you're not just talking, obviously, financially. There's like this emotional burden that comes along with it. How do you compartmentalize those feelings?
I think that I'm just in the mix. I'm not thinking about that all the time. I'm not thinking, oh, I've taken this big risk. We're in the day by day right now. Like we're in a situation where we're like, it's the next launch. It's the next incremental improvement of the product. There is always 5 or 6 problems that you're dealing with at any one time. So I'm actually not in that headspace where I'm like assessing how much risk I have or have not taken. It's just, I'm building something. I genuinely believe this is going to be a very, very, very successful brand. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. I also feel that I've learned so much over the last 4 years that myself and my co-founders are the perfect guys to lead this and also lead the category inevitably. So that's kind of where my head's at. I'm not thinking about, my risk or if it's not going to work. I have a plan A and plan A is going to work. Don't really feel it that I'm just focused on what I'm focused on now.
How has your experience as a bodybuilder and going pro, and even what you qualified as a failure in your previous venture, how have those experiences shaped your attitude, character, and approach in building Truly Cereal?
Bodybuilding is a discipline-based pursuit. It's your nutrition needs to be on point. You're not going out, you're not partying, you're not staying out late, you're getting to bed on time. And I think that all of that translates into when you're building a business, because you need to have that level of discipline. You need to have consistency over a very, very long period of time. And there's also that kind of perseverance that builds in. Bodybuilding is very, very, very tough. You can't miss meals. There's a lot that is in bodybuilding that transfers over to like many, many other skills or any other pursuits that you would do. So that was a huge thing for me. I had a beverage business. So it was like an iced tea that I added MCT oil to. And it was like my first foray into entrepreneurship. And I think it just came out of not the fact that I wanted to build a company. It's the fact that I just could not envision myself working in a finance job for my whole life. And I think even my colleagues around me kind of saw that too. Bodybuilding was, I think, an escape from that. And maybe it's a control thing, but I just had this thing where I wanted something to exist that wouldn't have existed if I wasn't around. Like, that. So I started this business. I kind of chased a trend. I learned so much from that. My dad kind of refers it to he wanted me to do an MBA. So I went through the GMAT and all that kind of stuff, but I ended up starting the business instead. That's how I met my co-founder, and that's how I got to this spot. So that was kind of the series of events that kind of led up to Truly.
It's funny. I've been listening to, not to plug another podcast, but I've been listening to Founders Podcast recently. Are you familiar with it?
That's Aaron Spivak's, is it?
No. It's David Senra. And it's this fantastic podcast where he breaks down autobiographies of entrepreneurs throughout history, but it's not just limited to entrepreneurs. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, David Ogilvy, Steve Jobs, Bezos letters. Like, he'll just take all of these incredible books, he'll break them down, synthesize them, and just walk you through it in a one-on-one experience. It's fantastic. Some of the ones that I've really enjoyed are Walt Disney, Michael Dell, and so he just released the one with Michael Dell. And one of the things that he was talking about is this notion that your parents are going to encourage you to follow the path. As a result, may not necessarily support the idea of you pursuing whatever your passion or pursuit is. And so that can be a distraction. So for Michael Dell, he gives the example of how his parents were telling him, follow the path to go to medical school. He also cites the example of Phil Knight, founder of Nike, where his dad told him, stop selling shoes door to door like a jackass. Stop jackassing around, I think is what he was saying. Those pieces of advice would have cost those particular individuals billions of dollars. And I think about that in my own life, where people that I love as much as they support and love me tell me I'm over-indexing on things that may not necessarily be a prime focus. And that can be a distraction and kind of can hit the ego and impact the risk tolerance and all the other things that we're talking about. How have you navigated, not just anyone that you love per se, how have you navigated the dynamics of people maybe telling you this isn't a good idea?
I don't listen. There's very, very, very few people that have opinions that matter. And my circle is incredibly small. And I'm so lucky that everybody supports me they just believe that if I set my mind to something, that I'll succeed. So I don't have the story of, my dad wanted me to get an MBA and then kind of continue down that route of like becoming a consultant or continuing on being a consultant in finance like I was. I think he was a little bit concerned when I decided that the MBA wasn't the approach, that I wasn't going to go into this very stable life. My dad was an entrepreneur. If you ask him now, we always have these conversations where if you look back, if you would do it again, he's like, man, a lot of things had to go right for me to succeed. And I think as a dad, he just looked at his son and said, I just want you to be okay and successful and happy. And you tend to not want them to go super far out on the risk curve. But the second that I said, I'm going to do this, he was behind me 100%. I spoke to him on the way over here. Like, he cares about this. He always wants to know what's going on. So I don't have that chip on my shoulder where I'm like, I'm going to show my parents that I'm going to win. My parents are behind me. My friends are behind me. There's obviously going to be doubters and people that are like, this is not going to work or this is silly. But I think that's just noise in the background. I'm not distracted by it at all. As we've kind of grown and the brand has become more known and the product has improved and more stores are taking it in and their online sales have grown and all these positive things are happening, they're sharing in that. So yeah, like, I don't have the Dell story or the Phil Knight story. Maybe the chip on their shoulder helped them, but the way I get motivated is not the fact that I'm trying to like prove someone wrong. I'm genuinely trying to prove to people that believed in me right.
I love that. That's an even more powerful motivator because you're living from love. You're coming from a place of certainty in the sense that I am loved and therefore I can, almost subconsciously. At least that's how it comes across. And that security allows you to pursue things with courage and with virtue and trying to build the best thing that you possibly can. I mean, let's touch on the ingredients of this thing for a second. Avocado oil in cereal, bro.
Yeah.
Can you enlighten us?
That was a rough one. It's expensive. Avocado oil is not cheap. The reality is that you having a seed oil free product in the health food space is a huge benefit.
Massive, especially now.
Like there's such a movement that people are concerned about this particular ingredient. I'm not going to go into the argument whether seed oils are good or bad or indifferent. You know, people are going to have different perspectives on it. Avocado oil was an ingredient where it kind of was able to cut in the middle, where people that were like, seed oils are fine. They don't care about avocado oil. It's a monounsaturated fat. It is healthy to everybody. No one has a negative opinion on it. We made that change in September and it had a massive impact. When you kind of check your social media or your comments or how people are interacting with you online, that change was a really, really big thing. I think people really valued it. It was a big thing. Like when you see sunflower or canola oil on a product, and we also didn't want to do this kind of like hedge play that some brands do that I don't really like, which is made with sunflower and or avocado oil. People are like, man, just go all the way. Just be seed oil free. That's what people want, right? So we decided to make that call, and it's played out well. The other one that we made was we had sugar alcohols in it. The problem is with sugar alcohols, they are about 40% as sweet as sugar. So you have to use a lot more to get that sweetness into the product. The problem is that if you consume a bunch of sugar alcohols, a bunch of people have digestive issues that go along with that.
Yeah.
So they'll eat something, hey, it tastes great, but like, man, my gastrointestinal tract is all screwed up afterwards. My thesis going forward is I don't think that low sugar products are going to be demonized at all. I think you're going to be seeing like organic cane sugar, maple syrup, honey be included in products more. I think this zero sugar thing is going to still have legs to some degree, but I think, moderate sugar products that are gastrointestinally okay are going to be the best way forward. So we went from a gram of sugar to 4 grams. Nobody cared.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people, and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the episode. It definitely was. I'm telling you, I picked up the box, I saw avocado oil, and I was like flipping it back and forth. I had the box and I was like, kidding. Like, I don't understand. There's Himalayan pink sea salt, and like there's from the electrolyte perspective to the low sugar perspective to the high protein to the clean ingredients. I was like, there's no way. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I literally made the decision in the moment to give it a shot. And I'm obviously very happy that I did. But I think that forward-thinking approach is not something that is conventional, obviously. And it takes a very brazen attitude to go all the way with something like that, especially where things are going. You have to be decisive in the types of ingredients you're going to put in your product, because everything is scrutinized these days, from heavy metals to plastics to seed oils, and too much protein, too little fat, too many carbs, not enough fiber. Like, there's all these, everyone's a nutrition expert these days, right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy to put yourself on the shelf and try to build a brand and a company that can actually make a difference in people's performance. But your posture and the way you're talking about it and the way I received it when I tried the product and picked up the product was a performance-inspired approach.
Yeah, like it's a performance cereal product. We didn't necessarily build it initially to be kind of for keto or for paleo or whatever. We just wanted it to be a cereal that will help your performance. The reason we're able to even go as fast as we had, or to have the ingredient profile we had, or to have the kind of protein content that we have, was because we couldn't get it co-manufactured. Like, the business actually started where my co-founder was like, let's start this protein cereal company. I went out, reached out to a co-manufacturer. We worked with these guys for nearly a year. We had like so many rounds of samples. And then when we actually got the first 5,000 units, we donated them to charity like almost immediately.
Wow.
We ended up kind of sitting down and being like, is this done? Like this, it literally could have been over at that point. And we found these guys that were trying to sell equipment from a bakery that was shutting down. And they had like a packaging machine and they had, you know, some machinery components that we could use. And that happened at the same time where we were working with a flavor house and we were like, hey, can you help us develop this? And we figured out that all they were doing was they were putting cereal, like protein cereal crisps into a bag and shaking it with like natural flavors and cocoa and stuff. And I was like, if a big flavor house is like, we can make this. It was this kind of light bulb moment where like, we can actually make this ourselves. So we didn't come from manufacturing. We actually bought the equipment before we had anywhere to put it, which was kind of like it was insane. So we bought this equipment from these guys and they said, yeah, like we're shutting down, like we're moving out. So you need to pick this up in 2 weeks. So like, yeah, we'll just buy it. We made the decision at like a Tim Hortons, we'll just buy this stuff and we'll see what happens. And then we kind of figured we'll be able to get like a commercial spot really easily. It was not easy. Everything was like absurdly expensive. We didn't know where to go. We ended up finding a 1,500 square foot place in Scarborough. So if you're in Toronto, you know what Scarborough is. It's not the spot that you would pick for like a food manufacturing facility. We got it off this guy that was a carpenter. It was beside an auto body shop, a company that would make these mannequins that were used in that TV show, The Boys. And yeah, that's where we started it out. We just said, we need to make this ourselves. And it was the best decision we could have possibly made. Because if you're manufacturing it somewhere else, you're in the spot where you're holding shit tons of inventory. If it's not good, you still have to sell it. We were able to make extremely small batches and we're able to make these changes and innovate so quickly. And we went from a product that was a 2 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 over like a year and a half to 2 years. So that's why we are where we are right now. Like, I think we're in a really advantageous position because of the quality of the product. We're able to use the best ingredients, we had all the control. We've obviously moved into a much bigger manufacturing facility now, but that was the real inflection point when the business started to really show promise, was when we said, we're going to make this ourselves. And when a category is so nascent like protein cereal, there's not that many of them. There's a couple of large brands, but as far as I know, we are the only ones in our category that are vertically integrated.
This idea of betting on yourself to pursue something that only you can see in your mind's eye is something that we talk a lot about on this podcast. And I know based on the limited content that you guys do have out there, I was able to do some digging and find some stuff that system optimization and process is very important in your circles, if I'm not mistaken. Can you share a bit about your philosophy and how it's evolved over the years in building Truly?
I have to give a lot of credit to Shaqzad, my co-founder. Like, he's the guy that has been able to find the vendors to buy the equipment. Like, we've torn down and rebuilt our manufacturing process 3 times. Painful. The problem when you're making something yourself is that if you're like, oh, if we change this part of our process, we can make the product better. Unfortunately, that sometimes makes a piece of machinery completely redundant that you've paid for. So that's a very, very difficult process, but you still maintain that level of control. And my co-founder is a very, astute systems guy. Like, he built an e-commerce company. There's a lot of systems that come with like taking product in, packing, fulfilling, and he was able to kind of leverage that knowledge to build out systems for manufacturing. We actually make our product in a very different way than a traditional cereal product is made, which is to our advantage. And I think the fact that we didn't come from the food manufacturing space, that we came from outside, we had none of these like preconceived notions from if I had have worked for like a food manufacturer. So everything was just based on, maybe this will work if we do it like this. So we have this kind of very unique way that we manufacture the product, which is allowing us to get a better yield, a better a better coded product, all the presentation that comes along with it. Like we were suffering from the fact that, you know, do we like powder on the inside of the bag? Like just small things that people would notice that we were able to kind of like mitigate over time. And I think when you have control over the manufacturing and control over the product, it's this massive advantage. If somebody else is making it for us, we're not gonna know there's an issue until like a retail store calls and said, hey, you know, this is going on. We know everything is dialed in right away.
Having that ownership over your product, I'm sure, is very empowering also, because you get to be the ones that make the decisions. You're not outsourcing any of that. So you live and die with all the success or failure. And hearing your attention to detail, I feel like, at least in my experience, like through podcasting, through building a speaking business, coaching, and just becoming a athlete, details are so important. And there's a saying, the devil's in the details, but the divine can also be discovered there. This idea that with time and the more awareness you develop, that the details you start to pay more attention to. And so I imagine that when you started, that you weren't thinking about things like, well, is there powder in the bag of the cereal that we're making? And so those things kind of came with time. You're like, well, I don't know. So how has attention to detail played a role in building your brand?
So it's there's so many different components. Like we had an issue about a year ago where we sent a bunch of boxes to our distributor, went into stores, and the boxes were opening. So they'd be on the shelf and like the flap would be open. Like it's because you can't sell it. The product is open. And it was just because the machine we're using to actually close the boxes, as basic as that sounds, like we just weren't using the right glue or something. Like we literally knew nothing. So all of those small things that we've kind of learned have been a result of issues. Like one of the biggest beneficiaries for the business has been really negative reviews. When we get a bad review, we have a completely different perspective on it. We're like, great, we have this like thing we can fix. And we've kind of went through the process of fixing all these individual complaints when it came to taste or texture or packaging or the presentation of the product or how it looks. All these different components we've been able to control and slowly one by one check off. You know, I think there's going to be more things to fix, but I think we're at now I've never been more confident in where we are right now because we checked all those boxes. And I think, you know, there's going to be a huge expansion that's going to happen this summer when we move into the US. And I think we're ready for it. There's also been questions about like, you know, why didn't you raise money or why did you bootstrap it? If we had have raised money at the beginning, there's just no template for protein cereal now. It's just not a category that's matured. So it hasn't been perfected yet. If it was a protein bar, you could have probably done it. But in our case, if we had have launched or had the marketing dollars to really push our product out a year ago, the company would have died because our product just wasn't ready yet. At the time, we thought it was great, but it wasn't ready. And now it's ready.
It's funny because when we initially met, I asked you about whether it was in the US because I couldn't find it. And I haven't come across the situation really that products I enjoy I can't get because they're not available to me immediately on any of the major e-tailers or retailers. And I was disheartened. I was like, oh, I got to bring this back with me because we're filming this in Toronto for perspective right now.
It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens when we get in there.
From a social media perspective, I know you guys have a presence and I know you've seen some success over there. How has your social media impacted your business and what's the plan moving forward?
That is a weak leg for us in a big way. We have a really, really small team. I think social media hasn't been social media, even in marketing and awareness, hasn't been this massive priority for us. You know, to tell it to you straight, we're in the manufacturing facility the majority of the time. Like we're in there. Like we are a product-based company. It's all we have cared about. We started a line in 2022, but it's all been trying to get the product to the point where the world kind of will embrace it. And yeah, the social media side is going to start picking up. It just hasn't been the priority. The priority has been get the product made and make it as close to perfect as you can. I think that has a much bigger impact than being everywhere. I think the media side is going to be important when we're competing in the US, which we're going to have that focus, but it's all been product up to this point.
Brand at scale is tough to manage, obviously. How are you making sure you don't compromise quality?
It's the reason we built our manufacturing facility. And it's, we have myself and my co-founder, we own the whole thing. If we don't compromise, there is no compromise, and we don't plan to. Like, the product is going to maintain its integrity. It's a premium price product. Like, it's going to be $10.99 in the US, it's $14.99 in Canada. I think it's worth every cent that people pay for it. There's a lot that goes into what the product we produce, and no, there's going to be no shortcuts on the horizon at all. Like, people are paying for what it is, so it's not changing.
I love that idea of no shortcuts, because everyone looks for a fast fix. And I imagine that in your experience and being a dad and being an entrepreneur and being a professional bodybuilder, you realize that there's no hacks, actually. The hack is doing the work. And, I'm running this sub 3-hour marathon on Sunday, and, it comes from a place of fear. Like,
Sure.
It comes from a place of, there was a time in my life I couldn't jump over a rope. I never made a team. I was someone who couldn't until I started to tell myself that I'm someone who can. And so understanding that all it came down to, especially when I made a change to figure out how to get a six-pack, how to get fit, I stopped being jealous or envious of people that were fit and had great physiques, and started to reverse engineer, how can I do this? I passed the bar. I got into law school. Like, I finished the military. I've done all these different things in my life up to that point. How come I can't do this too? And so instead of thinking they had some secret special ingredient, I was strong, I knew I had discipline, I just didn't decide to go all in to make that choice, to make that change. And so when I started taking ownership of my decisions and realizing this is doable, I just have to, if I want to drink, I could drink. I just can't drink like an idiot. If I want to eat certain foods, I can still do it. I just can't binge. Like, there's going to have to be some quote unquote sacrifice or tough choices that I have to make in order to achieve this, but it's doable. And so these people aren't special. They're just making tough choices. They're just doing things that maybe there's a 1% or even half of 1%, I would argue, that are genetically gifted in a way that they don't have to put in the same kind of work. And that's an anomaly in my opinion. But the rest of us, we all have to put in the work. And so understanding that the process and falling in love, because everyone talks about falling in love with the process, falling in trust the process. No one really understands until they've been through a process that this is what a process looks like. And even if you've been through a process, you have to go through a process across so many different renditions of so many different goals to understand, okay, this is what process is. And for example, when I trained for the 58-mile ultramarathon, before I ran 58 miles, I had never run more than 30, maybe 30 or 33 miles, something like that, once or twice. But then I had to do double that on game day. And it's the same thing here. I've never put more than 12 miles at a sub 7-minute pace back to back. And now I got to show up on game day and double that effort. Right. And so I can't afford, especially on the heels of the London Marathon, where I saw so many people that are arguably fitter than me and better physiques, full-time jobs, and they do this fitness thing all the time. Whereas I got a full-time job. I got a speaking business. I got my training that I do. I got the podcast. I got I got kids at home. I got all these different excuses and reasons why this shouldn't work. I see these people that are doing it full time and still not able to achieve what I'm trying to do on Sunday. And it threw me off. And then I was like, wait a second. I can't afford mentally to let myself go into that place where I'll spiral out of control, or if I cramp, I got to control every single step. I got to be intentional.
When you started, you said, when I run this sub 3-hour marathon.
That mindset of inevitability.
You just said when. You said if. There was no hedging on it. No, you'll break 3 hours on Sunday.
Oh, man.
No, 100% you'll break 3 hours on Sunday. I watch your stuff on social media. There's no way. I don't think you'll let yourself run the marathon on Sunday. You're going to have the weather. It's going to be nice. You may break 250.
I don't know about that. But
I'm just saying, you got to just, I just don't think you're going to let yourself fall below. What pace per mile is going to get you sub 3?
650, 652.
Yeah, you're not going to let yourself fall under 652, dude.
It's one of those things that there's no choice. You have no choice. You've done the work, and it's funny because this is the week that I've trained the least, in a very, very, very long time. And it's almost a not reverse psychology in a way where
you're deloading though, right?
Yeah, it's deloading,
right?
But I never really deloaded. Even when I did the 58 mile ultra or any marathon that I've done, I lift before, I'll eat a little bit more, but I'm not taking it any easier. Maybe, I went from 60, 70, 80 mile weeks to 40, but I still was putting in the work. It's just part of
your mid 30s.
35, yeah.
Yeah, it's 35. This is, I don't know, man. I think you got even more in you than 3 hours. Based on what I've seen, it's a real feather in your cap if you can have a sub 3 that you can, that's one of those things where when you're 60 years old,
yeah,
you're I did this, I was a lawyer, I did this, I was a speaker, I had a podcast, and I ran a sub 3 hour marathon. You know what I mean? It ends up being one of those things that kind of a check on your board.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for you. I think it's going to go really, really well on Sunday. And it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
I speak to a lot of people who are trying to break 4, right? So I came from athletics background. My parents are both athletes. They both went to the US on scholarships. My dad was a cross country and long distance runner. So I get the game. Yeah. He was a sub 14 minute 5,000 runner. He was good. Yeah. But so I understand running sub 3 is tough for someone that wasn't. I don't know if you were a cross country guy when you were.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. I couldn't finish a mile.
You just took it up. Dude, I think that the mental fortitude you need to have to get yourself to run that pace per mile for 26 and a half miles, right? Is, it's not a lot of people have that. And I don't know if no one's just born genetically to run a sub 3 either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's what you were saying was you got to put in the work, you can't rely on genetics. You 100% can. Anybody that runs sub 3 on Sunday it's a result of their preparation.
I agree with you. It's one of those things that, going back to what we were talking about, no shortcuts. And I understand process. I never missed a session. I never missed a mile. I committed completely. I didn't miss a pace. I did everything that I needed to do. And I worked my way up, having never really put more than 2 back-to-back sub 7 minute miles before 2.5 months ago. Now I'm doing things like 12 miles back-to-back. I mean, I invested in the process. I put the money and invested in a coach. I put the time in. I did 4 a.m. days in the dark, in the snow.
It was
a
shit ton of
all those
shin
things.
splints.
Yeah, man. But so far so good.
Yeah,
I definitely got a bad hamstring, but no excuses. It's just one of those things that when you invest in a process, it's hard not to know that inevitably you will succeed. The question is on what time horizon. And as long as you're not going to compromise the quality, which you have not compromised quality across anything that I've seen from you. I was going through your YouTube videos from a decade ago.
Dude, I can't believe you found them. When you told me before the
Satanta?
podcast, I know.
Satanta?
I got so much shit because I grew up in Ireland. I moved here when I was 20, 21. And when I was competing in bodybuilding, the first couple of times I went in, my name is spelled Eoin. So it's not phonetic. People wouldn't know his own. So the announcer would mispronounce my name. And I spoke to my dad. I was like, they're mispronouncing my name. What do I do about this? At the time, I just thought it was cool. I'm going to call myself Satanta, who's this Irish mythological character. So Satanta was this kid. The whole story is that he was on the way to this very powerful guy's castle, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago in Ireland. And he was invited, but they forgot that he was coming. So they put the wolf outside. So he was going to Cullen's house. The wolf was outside. They didn't know Satanta was coming. He had a hurley, which is like a baseball bat that has a curve at the end. So it's a game called hurling in Ireland. So he had a hurley and a slither. And when he arrived at the house, the wolf attacked him and he killed the wolf. this big guard wolf with his Hurley and Slither. From then on, he became Cú Chulainn, which meant the Wolf of Cullen, because he killed the wolf, he had to then protect Cullen's castle. I thought that story was cool. I read it. My mom used to read it to me when I was younger, and I was like, I'm going to be Setanta, and it's phonetic and it's Irish, so I'll build a brand off that. And it stuck for the 4 or 5 years that I was bodybuilding, and then people actually said the name right. Yeah. But then when the body mill career ended, I came back to Eoin, and now I just continuously correct people on how to pronounce the name, you know?
Well, man, this has been awesome. I'm glad we finally got a chance to sit down and really highlight something that spoke to my soul, and we planned this right. You're a high quality dude. There's a question that I pose to all the guests that come on the podcast that I'd like to pose to you. If the future version of yourself from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
I think he'd say it's worth it. I think he'd say, like, you know, because he would have been there. So, and this is everything plays out the way it's supposed to. The 10-year future version of myself is giving myself, man, I wish I could talk to that guy. I think he'd say it's worth it. And I also think that I would tell my 10-year in the future version of myself would tell me to embrace what it is now. I think that, you know, I'm a victim of this. I think a lot of people may be as well. You kind of have this thing where, like, you know, next week or next month or next year, it's going to be better, or I'm going to get to this point where I'm going to be happier then. You know, I'm happy now. I actually, like, it's tough building this at the moment. There's a lot of issues. You know, you've got 2 kids, you got your wife, you got your business, you got all these type of things going on. But for some reason, I feel that these are the best years of my life. And I think that when I'm older, I will look back and be like, man, that was such a fucking crazy experience. There's this kind of framing that I think about when things are tough. I'm not sure where I heard it, but it really stuck with me. I can picture myself at 80 or 90 years old, if I get that far, where I'm like, you know, my body's broken down and my mind isn't what it was. And I'm like, you know, 5 minutes from death. I don't know what I'd give to be 34 years old and building the company again. Probably give anything, right? So what a great situation I'm in right now. Like, I get to do this, which is huge. And it kind of makes all the issues and all the problems that you may have seem very, very small in comparison. I love my life. And I hope that when I'm, you know, old and ready to move on, that I kind of just fulfilled my potential and I'm as regret-free as I can possibly be.
You haven't compromised your fitness at all, from what I could see.
Try my best.
Humbly. How are you managing your regimen with everything that you have going on?
I think it just has to be a priority, like 3 days a week. It's tough to fit it in. I think my training before was my entire day was built around my training. It was like, I'm training at this particular time. I'm going to be there. This is what I'm going to do. It's all planned out. Now it's a lot different. I'm trying to squeeze it in, but it's so important. I think, like, I was working late last night. I got back at about 12:30. My kids wake up at 6. I'm tired. And my thought process was, I can either, like, try and get an hour of sleep, or I can go and do 8 rounds in the rowing machine at the gym. 8 rounds in the rowing machine at the gym is always the better option, right? It's
Hurts.
it's just the better option. And I think that, you know, I know what it's like to not be healthy. I got DVT in October. I woke up one morning, calf was like so stiff, couldn't move it. I was trying to walk around, left for a couple of days. And then I went in and got an ultrasound and I had a massive blood clot on my calf. And I was like, whoa, you know, shit, 34. It's not good. You know, if it moves my lungs, it's a problem. So those kind of things really wake you up. And if you're not healthy, you're screwed, dude. You're in a really, really bad spot. So prioritizing my nutrition and my training, as basic as that sounds, it has to be that kind of priority. So I will move things around to get a 30-minute session in. I'm not going in and training for an hour and a half like I would have before. Like, I'm going in, I'm doing 10 to 12 sets. If I'm doing like a resistance-based training, you know, I'll do some high-intensity cardio stuff. Like, I'm not necessarily like yourself getting ready to run a sub 3-hour marathon. I'm just trying to be as healthy as I can and keep my body in a state where I can build this business.
Okay, so that leads me to, again, 2 more questions. As a dad, how are you prioritizing your time? How are you managing being a present and giving father while staying in peak physical condition best you can, building a 7-figure plus business, growing a brand, being an entrepreneur and the like? How does all that play together?
You just cut out the nonsense. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that you would do before you have kids.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
2 baby beautiful girls.
There we go. You know, congratulations.
Thanks,
like, man. When you become a dad, everything changes. You're not the priority anymore. They are. You know, the business is for them too, right? It's not just it's for them as much as it's for me. Like, I need to support these guys. As a dad, you know, things change. I think you just cut out all this fluff that exists in everybody's lives, and your circle gets tighter. You've got less time. You've got to be able to say no a lot more. I think that frustrates some people, but they can be frustrated. Just things get tighter. You just, you know, my life is my work and my family. Like, there's 2 things that I got right, which I'm so happy that I got right. I have a phenomenal business partner, a guy that I literally trust in my life. I have the best life partner. Like, she is incredibly supportive. She's a phenomenal mom. And if I had got either, those are 2 things you do not want to get wrong. You can get a lot of stuff wrong. Don't get those wrong. Don't go into business with someone that you don't trust, and then don't end up with someone who's not the right partner. So the fact that I've ticked both of those off, man, like, life is a lot easier when you have those things nailed down.
And then the last question is, how often are you eating Truly cereal?
Every day. Yeah. Genuinely. I eat it's just, I think it suits my lifestyle as well. It's not like I'm not trying to do a major plug. Oh, I eat my product every day. I eat my product every day, and my kids eat the product every day. It's just because it's so convenient. I want my kids to get their protein in. And for me, it's, you know, I get a cost price too. So that's a benefit. But yeah, no, I do. I consume it every day because it's convenient. I wake up in the morning. I don't have a bunch of time. I was like an oatmeal and protein powder guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like a couple of servings and some Greek yogurt, or, you know, I'll get some Fairlife milk and throw them in. And yeah, that's my morning routine. It's been really baked in. I'm a chocolate peanut butter guy. If I feel like treating myself, I'll have the s'mores product, but typically it's, chocolate peanut butter, serving and a half every morning. That's my routine.
I appreciate you very much. This was awesome. You're a high quality individual. I'm excited to see what's next for you, what's next for Truly. I know that the media is going to be picking this thing up, so I'm very happy to be one of the first to get ahead of everybody else, because it's always about where's the puck going, and I think it's going in your direction. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eoin Carroll, where can people keep up with your journey best as they can?
At Truly Cereal on Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, that's us.
My man, thank you so much.
Yeah, all the best.
If you got any value out of this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe, or share it with someone that you think would appreciate this. You can keep up with Eoin at Truly Cereal. And once again, my name is Jonathan Cohen, and this is Inside the Inspired.